I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 150 of the Future Template Parent podcast. 3 years, I can't believe it. This is my official happy birthday episode, and I'm so proud I made it this far. 150 episodes in 3 years means I only missed an average of 2 weeks of episodes a year, in spite of so much change, personally and professionally, moves many states away, moves houses, children going through a whole bunch of transitions, me going through a bunch of transitions, and professional changes too, like rebuilding my practice in a new state, expanding my intensives, expanding my coaching, all of that. That consistency has everything, and it's leveled up my business in every way. The podcast consistency is everything. So today I want to share 12 reflections, one for each month of the year. I'm going to focus on 4 lessons I learned from the podcast in year 3, 4 major things that changed or leveled up in the podcast this year, and 4 hopes and goals for the podcast as we head into year 4. But first, I want to make sure you all know about the 3-year birthday giveaway. I'm giving away a free 90-minute one-to-one coaching session with me. To enter, you just have to complete 2 tasks and send me proof of them. 1, share any episode of the podcast, email, social media, text, whatever, and send me a screenshot. And 2, rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform, Apple, Spotify, whatever, and send me a screenshot. If you do both of those things, and you send your screenshots to me in a DM on Instagram at Future Template Parent, or you can email it to me at solo@integritaswellnessllc.com. All the links are in the show notes for my email and for my Instagram. Don't miss out. I'll be picking the winner on May 31st, which is the actual 3rd birthday of the podcast. That's the day the first episode came out. But if you email me or DM me screenshots of those 2 things, you'll be entered. You can do it up until, May 31st, and you'll be entered. And then I will contact and announce the winner. So don't miss that. Okay, so starting with 4 things that I learned this year from the podcast. Number 1, you have to have expert support and targeted strategy with podcasts, with everything marketing, but podcasts too. At the start of year 3, I was under 9,000 downloads for the podcast. And today, on May 27th, I'm recording this a little bit before, but looking at the projections, I know this will be true. We're going to be just under 20,000, maybe over 20,000. That's about 11,000 downloads in a single year, right? Way more than double the first 2 years combined. And this growth did not happen by accident. One, consistency in continuing to promote the podcast, certainly. But in May and September of 2025, I invested in more coaching with Rosemary Callender of Evergreen Podcast Strategy. She has been my podcast strategist since I launched the podcast. She helped me launch my podcast, and she's supported me in different ways throughout. And so I invested some more money in working with her. And some of the stuff that we did during those times, sort of an SEO and AIO glow up on all of my show notes and titles and, crafting pitches to be on other podcasts, all sorts of stuff. That led to my first over 1,000 podcast download month in September of 2025. So there's a clear relationship there. So not only did I get help from Rosemary, I also have a team of people who support me with the podcast. My editor, Renee Baines, who edits the podcast and writes the show notes. My business coach, Dr. Carrie Jackson, who helps me plan out when I'm going to promote different things on the podcast and gives me feedback on my ideas for episodes. And then my fractional marketing officer, Brent Gary, who does my email marketing and my social media marketing for the podcast. All of these people play a role in making sure the show is professional and strategic. The takeaway is you need good strategy, and I'm proof of that, whether it's your podcast or promoting your EMDR practice or some other revenue stream. Strategy and support makes a huge difference. So that's number 1. Number 2, the podcast is non-negotiable as a core marketing priority. I've always thought this, but every year I feel like I relearn it. And this year was, again, personally hard. I feel like I've said that every year since the podcast has started. And honestly, the years since I started the podcast in May 2023 have been really, really intense ones for me and my family. So this past year, we had to move suddenly in October 2025, like from one rental house to another with like a month's warning. That was a lot. And starting in October 2025, we had started kind of reintegrating my autistic daughter back into school a little bit, but she went into severe burnout again. We pulled her out, and I had to figure out homeschooling and what that was going to look like. Lots of stress, lots of wild scheduling, but I never let the podcast slide. This is 150 episodes, right? I continued hearing from people that the podcast is the number one way that they find me for business coaching and for EMDR consultation. I cannot let it go, right? Consistency wins, and the podcast is too valuable to ever let go, even when it feels super, super hard. Does that mean that some episodes aren't as good as others? Sure. Does it mean that it's still worth posting an episode, even if it isn't as good as other ones? Yes. Okay. And let that be a lesson to you too, for whatever your marketing is. Something is better than nothing. Mediocre content, honestly, is better than no content. And it's probably less mediocre than you think. Sometimes there are episodes where I was like, this isn't really, it's kind of a, dashed this off, and I'll get feedback that people liked it. So you just never know, right? Number 3, I learned I will always have more episode ideas. I remember hitting episode 100, so a year ago, when I was starting to feel that burnout and that was around when I had invested again with working with Rosemary, because I was feeling those burnout signs. I was like, I don't even know what to talk about anymore. I'm tired. And so I reached back out to Rosemary, and she really helped me revamp my planning and thinking about content, how to think critically, how to think planfully. We sort of mapped out some episodes, a few months out, a plan for staying ahead. I relearned, but even more true, like to stop always feeling like I had to create a completely new idea from scratch, to look at the content that I'm creating in formal and informal ways and sort of mine that, right? She said, like, let's look at the transcripts from your group coaching calls, from your one-to-one coaching calls, from your consultation sessions. Lucky for me, I always record those, and see what's coming up, right? The content is there, waiting to be organized and shared. And even if it's a topic I thought I've already covered, when I look back at some of those transcripts, I see that there are new angles, there's important things to add. It's okay to share similar messages more than once. There's always more context and experience and reflection to bring to a topic. And of course, sometimes people don't remember the previous episode, or didn't hear the previous episode, or need to hear the same message slightly differently. Rosemary also had me look at a few podcasts that I really like and be like, how many times, if you look back at the episode titles, have they talked about similar things, right? It's okay to do that. Everybody does that. So I'm always going to have more episode ideas. And they're not just recycled ideas. Like, I definitely come up with new things as I move on. But sometimes, looking back at my old content, looking back at coaching calls is so helpful for getting inspired. Number 4, it's all about vulnerability and authenticity. And that's how you connect with your audience. I think I really thought that the episodes people really wanted were the clinical EMDR focused episodes. But I also realized over the course of this year, when I started sharing more about the entrepreneurial journey, the messy ups and downs, what's happening in my life, things I'm struggling with personally that are impacting my business, I saw those episodes do really well. The vulnerability didn't detract from the value. In fact, it felt like it made the content stickier, like people remembered it better and more relatable, and that people felt deeply connected as I was showing up as my more authentic self. I think I've always tried to be authentic, but this year I was like, it's okay to just show up and record sometimes. A lot of the times I still do plan the episodes out, but sometimes it's okay to be like, I'm just going to show up and talk about what's going on and how it's hard. I know the connection matters so much, right? Yes, I still include clinical episodes because I know my audience really appreciates them, right? But showing behind the scenes of business growth And the truth of business growth as a parent is so valuable. I benefit, I know, hugely from hearing my favorite podcasters talk about the ups and downs, the behind the scenes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And I love those. I feel so seen, especially when it's someone who I see as like super successful, right? It's so easy to think that other people aren't struggling. When you see the flashy Instagram reels, the podcast episodes that talk about, here's how I made, 500K this year or whatever. But for literally every business owner, there's so much more to the story. There are failures in there as well as successes. And what I want for you, my audience, is to feel that what I'm talking about is possible for you, right? Even when your life can feel out of control and messy. My life gets out of control and messy, and I know it's out of control and messy for you too. And I don't want you ever to think that I'm doing this smoothly and with no bumps. And if you listen to last week's episode, I go real deep on this, and how this happened to me recently in a really real way and in a pretty difficult way. So listen to that if you want to hear about some bumps and how I got to the other side of them. So last week was a vulnerable episode. So that was 4 lessons I learned this year. What were 4 things that changed this year? Number 1, I got a lot smarter about using AI. Okay. I will say that I was really skeptical. I was kind of scared of AI in year 2, but now it's a really indispensable tool. And I don't mean like recording my sessions, because I don't do that. But I use it now to do things like write pitch emails to be on podcasts or to have people guest on my podcast, and those have worked. I use it for structuring my own episode ideas. I use it for creating Instagram content that's podcast related. It's really helpful. I record a lot of voice notes with ideas, and that's just me, what's the word? Free associating about what I'm thinking about. But I just dump that transcript into Claude or Gemini. Yes, I no longer use ChatGPT. I'm just like, here's some stuff. How do you organize it? I'm not just typing, and let me tell you, I'm not just typing in, tell me exactly what to say about this topic I'm giving you a context for. I want my voice in it, of course. So that's why I tend to just be like, either type a whole bunch of sort of stuff that comes out of nowhere or write a voice note, record a voice note and dump that in. Sometimes I'll copy and paste other episode transcripts. If I'm doing something related, I'm like, you can pull some of the ideas from here based on this, maybe refine them. And then of course I go back in and edit whatever's there, right? I came up with all the topics, all the points for this episode already, and did a little bit of talking about each one, but I did dump the whole thing into Gemini and say can you organize this a bit more? Can you optimize it a bit more? And I'm just working with an outline right now. I'm still adding details as I record this, right now. I'm just putting in extra stuff that's not in there. So, I want it to sound like me, but it certainly helps when I'm with that blank page syndrome where I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? Right. And that saves me so much time. Number 2 that changed, I got brand deals. I got 4 brand deals this year, which is a major win, not only for getting some extra cash, but getting more exposure, right? I'm partnering with Mentaya, and they're going to be on the show next week, I believe, a little later than that, the end of June maybe, to discuss out-of-network reimbursement, and Berries, which is a platform that uses some AI for sessions. I don't use the recording feature. I use the feature where I just talk a little bit about what happened and then they make it into a note, so I don't have to record the session. And I have a lot of control over what I share. But yeah, the podcast has matured into a valuable asset, not for me and for companies that see the value in it, right? This was something I felt so much imposter syndrome about, right? Who am I to get brand deals? I only have about not even 2,000 Instagram followers. My podcast is not huge. I'm not one of those big accounts, but brands saw that my content was really focused and had a lot of engagement. Okay. And that it was rapidly increasing in terms of its, people watching it and following it and stuff. So that was seen as valuable. And I know that's going to grow. Right. And I also got over the fear of just cold kind of DMing people and companies, because I saw that I got responses. I think out of 6 or 7, maybe 7 companies that I tried to connect with, I got brand deals with 4 of them. So that's a really good average, honestly. And I picked specific things and had good pitch. Like, again, I used good old Claude or Gemini to help me craft a good pitch. But something else I did, I dramatically increased my guesting on podcasts and my hosting of guests. I have way more big name guests, which helps my audience, gives them value and provides great connections for me that I can continue to build on. And I've also increased the amount I've appeared on as a guest on other podcasts, right? So this year I've appeared on the Entrepreneurial Therapist podcast, Business of Therapy podcast, the Traveling Therapist podcast, Private Practice Elevation, and the Happy, Healthy, and Wealthy Therapist podcast. And it's only, that's just been since, well, I guess Entrepreneurial Therapist was last summer, but all the rest of those have been very recent, like in the past several months. So past, I think February, March, the past 5 months. So I'm continuing to reach out to people and get more of those. And I'm getting positive responses when I reach out. People are like, whoa, that sounds great, because I give them a really good pitch. I'm also being invited to be a speaker at virtual events. That's happened to me for the first time. So that's really cool. So again, that's going to increase my listenership and my email list and people, things like that. I got a lot more strategic about things like show notes and content planning, right? I started thinking about what exactly do I want this podcast episode to be geared towards marketing, or is it just a podcast is it an episode that's intended to grow my audience? Is it one where I want to be delivering really high quality information to build trust? Is it one where I'm, sharing some authority? Is it one where I'm trying to build connection? Or is it one that I'm trying to promote something? And I try to have a really good balance of those and spread them out in a way that when I'm trying to launch something, I have built up enough authority and trust that the launch episodes don't just feel like a pitch, and they also provide some value. I also have, like I said, worked a lot more on SEO and AIO principles for my show notes and titles, again, increasing the people that I'm bringing in. Okay, so 4 hopes and goals for year 4. I want to hit 50K downloads. That's right. That's about 30,000 more downloads. And I got 11,000 downloads in the past year. So that's a lofty goal, but I'm going to continue pushing these strategies that I have been talking about. And I'm going to continue. I also upload all my episodes to YouTube, but I haven't done a ton to, I get some views, but I haven't done a ton to really promote that. So I want to focus on that. So I'm increasing, people seeing them. It's like a big untapped growth area, I feel like. So, and continuing to, get on podcast, all the things that have been working, I'm going to continue those. I want to turn the podcast into a major direct revenue stream. I want to make $30,000 in year 4 from the podcast through sponsorships, ads, paid interviews, things like that, brand deals. The show already, is a great way to advertise my programs. And of course, that's a way to build revenue. But I want to see this podcast be a revenue stream on its own, right? Continuing to build some financial stability for me. I want to elevate the connections that I'm making with guests and guesting, get on more and bigger podcasts, bring more big name guests to the podcast. I'm not going to name names, but I'm super motivated to pursue these connections because I know it will support my goals, strengthen my standing. In the EMDR and therapy business community, I'm going to a retreat in the beginning of the fall, which I hope will, develop some connections where I can have some of those guests on. So I'm excited for you to hear some really cool guests. I already have some on the docket, more to come. And I've gotten less afraid to just reach out to people and say, hey, come on the podcast. And often when I do that, if they have a podcast, they're like, how about you come on mine? Works great. Because they see I have value to give to their audience. And then the last goal I have is community conversion, to really find a way to create a listener community so you all can connect with each other, not just Instagram, but all of you who are listening have common goals and interests. And I would love to have some sort of way to bring you together. I don't know, private Facebook group, Slack channel, very low cost membership. But I want to create a space where you can refer to each other, support each other, cheer each other on. I'm not exactly sure what this is going to look like, but I'm also putting out this goal of getting 500 people doing that by the end of year 4. Again, are these crazy lofty goals? Maybe, but I think they're worth trying and seeing what happens. And if you have any ideas about how this could look or something that would be helpful to you, please let me know, because I think it could be something where all you podcast listeners could get a ton of value without having to invest a lot of money. Yeah, so those are my 4 lessons learned during the year, 4 things that changed on my podcast, and 4 goals for year 4. And a heartfelt thanks to all of you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for every idea you've given me, every piece of constructive criticism, every review, every share, every message letting me know how this has helped you. So grateful for all of you. You know, my mission is to help EMDR therapists build sustainable and transformative practices. And if this podcast has helped you in even the smallest way, I've achieved something great. Don't forget to enter for that free 90-minute coaching session. Links in the show notes for how to do that. And yeah, on to year 4. I can't wait to see what year 4 brings. Can't wait to record this podcast episode in a year and be like, I smashed all those goals out of the water, and because it will be thanks to you. And please, if you have success stories, if the podcast has helped you in any way, always let me know. That is so motivating. And if you ever have an idea for an episode, oh my gosh, or a question, send it to me. I will absolutely go into it and answer it. So a huge thank you to all of you again. I would not be celebrating this birthday without you all. It felt like a pretty out of left field idea, all those years ago, 3 years ago, when I just decided to go for it. But I have no regrets, and I'm so thrilled that I did. So that's a message for you. If you feel like I have an idea that feels like, oh, should I do this? But you keep coming back to it. It keeps, it's in your brain. My podcast is proof that those ideas are worth following, because that's what it was like for me, and that's what I did. So thank you again. Back next week. Consistency keeps happening, and thank you all. Take care.